and welcome to another episode of Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. We're now on episode 11, and I think 3 bonus episodes. And I have to say, this has been a really incredible journey. I think if you listen to the first episode and then you listen to this episode, you'll see that the tone, the tenor, the energy of what we're doing, this project we're building, is changing over time. I'm evolving. I hope you're evolving, because guess what? Authoritarianism is not slowing down. It's evolving as well. It's changing and it's adapting. A lot of people ask me all the time, what can I do to fight fascism? Well, today in episode 11, we're going to give you a pointed strategy, something tactical that you can actually do. So if you've been listening to episodes 1 through 10 and you've been following along, taking those practical steps, today is a tactical step. Today's an actual step for you to take. Just to share a little bit of a personal note as well, I have to say that even though I feel great progress with the work we're doing here with Ignite, I do find myself occasionally quite outraged. I think it is outrageous what is happening to this country right now. To see the literal east wing of the White House demolished like a symbolic destruction of a unified goal, a dream of a representative democracy, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the people's house, quite literally, torn down in sort of a trauma that I don't think enough people have really processed. So I'm outraged that this is happening. I'm outraged that people are so willfully destroying this government for short-term gains, harming not only other people, but perhaps creating a situation this country may not come back from. But I'm also outraged at those people who know, who willingly know what is happening, who can see it, who can feel it, and who do nothing. I find it incredibly outrageous, and it makes me angry. I get angry with people who criticize small acts of resistance, saying it's not enough, saying this protest is not enough, or calling your representatives is not enough. The reality is, in fighting fascism, each small incremental step is part of the fight. And those people who simply sit around on their couch whining, complaining, and doing nothing, they might as well have been elected representatives tearing down the White House. The effect is the same. Nonetheless, if you're listening to this episode of Ignite and you've stuck through all 11 of these episodes, I think you might want to know that you're no longer just a casual listener. I think you're a liberationist. And the thing about being a liberationist is you have to fight for people that don't like you. You have to fight for people that whine about what you do. You have to fight for people who don't believe it is as bad, and you have to fight for each one of those people all the same, knowing that some of them may well never even think about fighting for you. So thank you for sticking through this. I'm going to give you some practical steps today. Let's get into it. Welcome to Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. This is episode 11, and it is recorded on October 27th, 2025. I come from a week of really a lot happening. A lot of action happened this week, and I want to share with you a practical step that I took to fight back against fascism, and more importantly, to hold government accountable. I live in Nevada, and if you follow me in any sort of way on any platform, you'll probably know that I have been raising the alarm about the local power monopoly, Nevada Energy, NV Energy, implementing what's called a demand charge. NV Energy is set to increase billing to its customers by charging customers for the 15 highest usage minutes of the day as what they call a demand charge. Well, the result of this certainly does things like punishing solar customers or people who have electric vehicles. And I really raised the alarm about this in my community. I created a lot of messaging around this, some of which has been seen millions of times. And I asked people to show up to a local government meeting of what's called the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, or PUC. Well, much to my surprise, hundreds of Las Vegas residents decided to show up and voice their concerns. The average PUC meeting is about 5 minutes. They start the meeting, they read the agenda, and they close the meeting. But because of the awareness raised by this issue, hundreds of people showed up to voice their concerns, and a normally 5-minute meeting ended up lasting almost 3 hours. It was very clear that the citizens of my community chose to stand and to act, and I'm so proud of them. So whenever someone says, oh, small acts don't matter, you can't make a difference, you can't make a change, it remains to be seen what the Nevada Public Utilities Commission will do about NV Energy. But what is unquestionable is the commitment of my neighbors for showing up. And if you're listening to this and you happen to be there, I just want to say thank you so much. So picture this. It's the summer of 1942. Students at the University of Munich began finding something extraordinary in their mailboxes. Plain envelopes containing typewritten leaflets with no return address. The heading was Leaflets of the White Rose. Now, if you've been following the show, this should not be new to you. We've been covering this in the last several episodes, but these were not advertisements or political pamphlets from an established party. They were acts of resistance against Nazi tyranny, written, copied, and distributed by hand in a regime which such actions were certain death. Today we're going to go over leaflet 4, and we're going to draw some parallels to the modern challenges facing American democracy, because sometimes the most important lesson about defending freedom comes from those who risked everything. So let's get into it. Now again, if you've not heard about the White Rose before, I would please ask you to go listen to the previous episodes and get caught up on leaflets 1 through 3. But what I would tell you about leaflet 4 is this. Let's set the stage. It's 1942. Nazi Germany controls most of Europe. Hitler's regime seems unstoppable. The propaganda machine by Goebbels is running 24/7. They're telling Germans, we're winning, we're superior, we're destined for greatness. But in Munich, a small group of university students, Hans and Sophie Scholl, Christopher Probst, Alexander Schmorell, Willy Graf, and their professor, Kurt Hubert, decide they cannot remain silent. They didn't have an army, they didn't have a political party, and they had no backing. What they did have was typewriters and a mimeograph. Something even more powerful that they had was moral clarity. And so, as you now probably know, they wrote 6 leaflets, which they copied and they mailed to random addresses, which they selected from the phone books. They handed them out on college campuses. You have to remember, this sounds like such a small thing now, but at the time in 1942 Germany, this was a insanely dangerous act. And indeed, they paid the ultimate price for this, which we'll talk about again, and we talk about always. But leaflet 4 starts out with a very interesting moral challenge. And I do want to preface that leaflet 4, the Society of the White Rose, leans very heavy into religion. And the text is very religious, and I would ask you to come along with me on my journey of education as well. This podcast is not about religion, but we're about to talk a lot about religion because it was an essential part of the moral challenge that the leaflet made to the citizens of Germany in 1942. And what I would say, stepping out of the recording right now, is a lot of what's happening in America is the use of religion through Christian nationalism, a sort of false Christian nationalism, if you will, to do the same thing. So I think we might learn from the White Rose how they also used religion to challenge their neighbors and friends. So starting off on leaflet 4. There is an ancient maxim that we repeat to our children. He who won't listen will have to feel. But a smart child will not burn his fingers on a hot stove more than once. So think about that. The White Rose is telling their fellow Germans, you've already been burned. You know what this regime is. You know who Hitler is. Why are you reaching for the stove again? And they continue describing how these recent successes that the Germans had in Africa, in Russia, they were temporary victories. They created optimism. They say, actually, maybe Hitler will win after all. Maybe they were worried about nothing. But this is how tyranny holds its grip. They rely on propaganda rather than reality. And then they ask a devastating question. Who has counted the dead? Hitler? Goebbels? Certainly neither of them. And the regime did not count the dead because the regime does not value human life. They're just numbers in service of the narrative. But here's what makes this leaflet so remarkable. The White Rose doesn't describe what's wrong. They explain why Germans kept falling for it. They said in leaflet 4, every word that comes from Hitler's mouth is a lie. When he says peace, he means war. When he blasphemously uses the name of the Almighty, he means the power of evil, the fallen angel, Satan. Now, I understand that probably sounds extreme, but understand this rhetorical strategy they were using. The White Rose is using language that their audience understood to make a point. They weren't just saying this is bad politics. They were saying this is a fundamental inversion of truth itself. And indeed, we're experiencing this now here in America. When the president says the East Wing will not be touched, and then it is pulverized on national television. And so whether you share their religious framework or not, they're simply making an observation. Evil does not announce itself. It wraps itself in the language of patriotism, security, and greatness. It inverts that meaning until people no longer have the ability to recognize truth. When the President of the United States lies so openly and boldly, how are you to know the truth from a lie? And then here comes the question that really echoes across 80 years from the White Rose. They say to their neighbors, I ask you, as a Christian struggling with the preservation of your great treasures, whether you hesitate, whether you incline towards intrigue or procrastination in the hope that someone else will take up arms in your defense. Someone else. Always someone else. Someone more powerful, more connected, more capable. But the White Rose says, no. The time for waiting is over. We must attack evil where it is strongest, and it is strongest in the power of Hitler. So they're quite literally saying, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for someone to save you? Are you waiting for someone to start a protest? Are you waiting for someone to stop this? The courts? Congress? What are you waiting for? And why does that matter today? In theory, we have free elections. We have a judiciary. We have a system of a constitution. But it's all under assault. It's all under attack in plain view. The White Rose understood something timeless about how democracies die. They wrote in the fourth leaflet, we emphatically wish to point out that the White Rose is not on the pay of any foreign employer. Although we know the National Socialist power must be broken by military means, we are trying to achieve a renewal from within the great, severely wounded German spirit. So they're saying, hey, we're not foreign actors. We understand that you're not the military and that it's going to take the military to defeat this, but we actually think we are trying to convince you to change this from within by having a moral stand. Only the internal moral reckoning of the German people could truly transform the country. They continue in the letter. This rebirth must be preceded, however, by the clear recognition of all the guilt which the German people has burdened itself, and by an uncompromising battle against Hitler and his all too many accomplices. And they go on in the letter to remind the German people that when this was over, when it all came to an end, don't forget the little scoundrels, the many people who allowed it to happen. The White Rose understood that tyranny requires countless small acts of complicity. It's not just the dictator, it's every bureaucrat. It's everyone who says, oh, I don't follow politics. It's not my problem. Or someone who looks away. And at the end of the leaflet, as always, the White Rose says the following. We will not be silent. We are your bad conscience. The White Rose will not leave you in peace. And then, of course, as they always say, please copy and send on. And think about that. This was 1942. I'm so sorry. This was 1942. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have systems of communication. They had a typewriter and a mimeograph. And yet they understood the power of decentralized action. They could write the truth and they could ask others to spread it. They said, copy and send on. And that simple instruction is an incredible act of faith in ordinary people. Sophie Scholl was arrested on February 18th, 1943, along with her brother. They were interrogated, tried, and executed by guillotine within 4 days. Sophie's last words were reportedly, such a fine sunny day, and I have to go, But what does my death matter if through us thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action? She understood. She was speaking truth, and others would hear that truth. And she was right. The White Rose leaflets were seen by millions. They were copied by Allied forces and dropped over the sky by millions. The resistance she died for outlived the regime that killed her. So let's jump forward. 82 years later, 2025. It's the United States of America. I'm going to give you a challenge, something you can do, something I have already done. I'm asking you to write a letter, just like Sophie Scholl and Hans Scholl, and I'm asking you to tell the truth. So the issue's pretty straightforward. You are probably well aware that right now, whether that's Steve Bannon or sycophants across the Republican Party, people are actively talking about the president running for a third term in 2028. In fact, they already have made merchandise and hats and all those kinds of things. The reality is the 22nd Amendment is very clear. No person can be elected more than twice. It is not ambiguous. It's not open to interpretation. It's just plain text. But as we approach 2028, the growing speculation that the president might run again, well, it's paralyzing people. And of course, you might say that's obviously unconstitutional. That's never going to happen, and the courts will stop it. And that's exactly the kind of thinking the White Rose was warning you against. Remember, they asked that question. Whether you hesitate, whether you incline towards intrigue or procrastination in the hope that someone else will take up arms in your defense. Someone else, the courts, the political parties, the media. Someone else is going to handle it. But I'm asking you to handle it. I'm asking you to understand something the White Rose knew. By the time a crisis is undeniable, it's too late to prevent it. So instead of waiting, I'm asking you to do what I did, to write a letter. Not to express an opinion, not to protest, but to make specific demands. So let me read you part of that letter. I'm writing as a registered voter in the state of Nevada to formally demand that your office clarify and affirm the constitutional requirements governing presidential term limits as they apply to the 2028 presidential election. Now notice that language. It is a demand letter. It's not a request. It's not an ask nicely. It's a demand because you as a voter have the right and the legal standing to demand that election officials uphold the Constitution. And so what I've done here is I've created a template for you to challenge your local election officials to prevent this president from running for a third term. I've created this full toolkit, which is available to you on my Substack. And I'm going to put the links in the Spotify description so you have all of this. But I'm giving you the opportunity to take, just as the White Rose says, copy and share. Take my letter. Use it in your state. Do you see the parallel? The White Rose warned Germans not to wait until the harm was undeniable. They said the harm is happening now. Our letter does the same thing. It says this is not hypothetical. Okay? Candidates cannot make informed decisions. Voters are confused. Resources are being misallocated. So in this letter, which I'll read parts of, I have crafted for you 4 specific demands. Number 1, issue a public statement affirming that the 22nd Amendment prohibits anyone from being elected president more than twice. Number 2, clarify that the Secretary of State will not certify any constitutionally ineligible candidate for the ballot. Number 3, establish clear procedures for reviewing and rejecting ineligible candidates. And number 4, coordinate with other states. The key provision of this letter is demanding a response within 30 days, a deadline in writing. And that creates for you a public record. And that transforms a vague concern into accountability. If the Secretary of State responds to you saying, yes, we will uphold the Constitution, that's on the record. If they refuse to respond, that is also meaningful. If they respond with ambiguity, that reveals something important. It is the same principle. What the White Rose said, we are your bad conscience. They were creating a record in 1942, and you are creating a record now. Here's what makes the leaflets and our constitutional defense so powerful. They're preemptive. We're not waiting until 2028 to decide if this president is eligible. We're taking action now. We are acting while the system can still self-correct. And let me be very clear again. What I'm asking you to do is take this letter, to copy it, and to send it to the highest election official in your state. In most states, that's going to be the Secretary of State. In Alaska, it's the Lieutenant Governor, we learned on our live show, by the way. And I'm asking you to take it, send it via certified mail, send it via email, and give them 30 days to respond. Democratic norms and constitutional principles don't die in one catastrophic moment. They die through incremental normalization of what we previously thought was not possible. Nobody thought that you could run for 3 terms in America, or Barack Obama would have run for a 3rd term. The White Rose saw what was happening in Germany. I'm asking you to see what's happening now in America. I'm asking you to defend the 22nd Amendment. I'm asking you not to wait for someone else to handle it. I'm asking you to be the person that does this. Here's a little piece from the White Rose 4th leaflet. Everywhere and at all times, demons have been lurking in the dark, waiting for the moment when man is weak. When unauthorized, he leaves his place in the order of creation, founded for him on freedom by God. When he yields to the force of evil, separates himself from the powers of a higher order, and after voluntarily taking the first step, he is driven onto the second and the third at a ferociously accelerating rate. Now, take aside the religious language and just look. Our elected officials allow the first step, the second step, and the third step, and all of a sudden, the 22nd Amendment means nothing. The slippery slope. But you can prevent that. You can hold them accountable. In the letter that I'm giving you to use, it says, public speculation about circumventing the Constitution and this provision undermines democratic norms and certainly creates uncertainty that harms the electoral process. The speculation itself, just talking about it, is the first step down the slope. So that's why the letter I give you for free stops the slide. Put it in writing. Make it clear. And just like the White Rose, please copy and send on. I'm saying, take this, use it. I'm releasing it for you to use. One person writing one letter to one Secretary of State, that could be ignored, certainly. But what happens when all of the Secretaries of State get a letter? What happens when this becomes an issue? That's when individual resistance becomes a movement. You ask me all the time, what can I do to fight fascism? I'm telling you right now what you can do, so please do it. But let's get practical. Let's talk about action. So, number 1, the first thing I would say to you, if you live in a state and you're a registered voter, you have what is called standing. If you're a registered voter, that gives you legal standing to demand that your state's election officials uphold constitutional requirements. Your status as a voter is important. Step number 2, different states have different structures. Some have secretaries of state. Those people oversee elections. Others have boards or commissions. You need to know who the highest possible power is. That's what you're going to use for your letter. Step 3 is customize this letter. Use the letter that I've provided, change it, make it custom, make it yours. And of course, step 4 is make demands. Demand a response. Now, you can usually send this letter by email or by certified letter, of course, but I would encourage you to do as many things as you can. Send it by certified letter. Send it by email. Do whatever you can to make this happen. The last part is do the same thing I did, which was request a written response within 30 days. We're going to talk in a coming episode of what to do if they don't respond. But the final step is to share your action. Tell other people. Give them a copy of the letter. Ask them to do the same. And a lot of people will. Just like the White Rose said, we will not be silent. We are your bad conscience. Do not let your elected officials ignore this. One of the things people don't understand is elected officials have something called constituent services. This means when you write to them, when you call them, when you reach out to them, they're generally expected to respond to you. Ask them to respond to you. Demand they respond to you. If they do not respond to you, let us come together and demand together. A lot of people right now are feeling paralyzed. And if they know that this is only going to last 3 more years, they can survive 3 more years. But the uncertainty is the point. The fear is the point. Scaring people is the point. So let us take away that fear. Let's make silence uncomfortable. Let's make ambiguity costly. So let me close with this tonight. A thought, if you will. Sophie Scholl, standing before trial in the Nazi People's Court, reportedly said the following: somebody, after all, had to make a start. What we wrote and said is also believed by many others. They just don't dare express themselves as we did. They just don't dare. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to my words, me now, you are Sophie Scholl. You are Hans Scholl. You are a liberationist. The people who don't speak up, it's not that they disagree. It's not that they support this current version of American fascism. It's because they were waiting for someone to go first. They were hoping they would not have to be the ones to speak up. Sophie Scholl went first. I'm not asking you to risk execution. I'm asking you to write a letter to your Secretary of State, to put it in the mail with a stamp, to make those public officials do the thing you elected them to do. And if that seems difficult, if you find yourself saying to yourself, oh, well, someone else is going to do that, remember what they said. Remember that the White Rose faced infinitely worse odds, and they acted anyways, certainly knowing it might cost them the ultimate price. Every little step of your democracy is not taken in one giant swoop. It's one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. The 22nd Amendment exists because Americans learned a hard lesson about executive power. It's a guardrail, but the guardrail only works if we maintain it. So I'm going to adopt a final question for you from the White Rose. Do you hesitate? Do you procrastinate in the hope that someone else will defend your Constitution? Or will you copy my letter and send it on? Thank you so much for joining episode 11 of Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. If you want a copy of the letter, I have inserted the text of the way to find that in the comments of the Spotify show here. Of course, you can find me on Threads. My tag on Threads is Your Socialist Dad with a Y-E-R. And it is available on the Unraveling Substack. So go to the comments on Spotify, go to the episode description, find the link to the letter, take the letter, copy and paste, download, send it out, make it yours. Stop this madness from happening. People ask me all the time, what can I do to fight fascism? Well, here you go. Here's something you can do. So now please go do it. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise.